You proceed with the sentiment and any apologies.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yep.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yeah, Christine, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. No. Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Graham Barton.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Barry Douglas.
Here.
Councillor Neil Ingram.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor Drew Filson.
Yep.
I have an apology from Dr David Lewis. Reverend Harriet Johnston.
Here.
Thank you. I have an apology from Babs Mowat and also Norman Watt. Jackie Livingston.
I'm here.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Christine. I've got just like to welcome back Harriet Johnson back from paternal leave. Welcome back. And now go to item 1, and that's the declaration of interest. Don't think there's anything specific that's coming up, but no, if you have any. Okay, so first item is our anti-poverty and inequalities paper, and that'll be presented by Richard Greaveson. Richard.
Thank you, Leader, and good morning, members. This has been a critically important and a significant piece of work that's been the focus of the Cost of Living Oversight Group for the past 5 months. The work undertaken and therefore the basis of the report has focused on 2 main areas. Firstly, we've reviewed the various projects and interventions that were put in place in response to the cost of a living crisis, which utilised the one-off grant made available by members. We've also identified areas where we can mainstream activities and interventions into core service provision, thus making them sustainable, and have proposed for members' consideration areas where we believe there's an ongoing need for ongoing additional targeted intervention, and where therefore we propose to allocate the current cost of living crisis grant underspend. Recognising our most vulnerable communities will require ongoing support, but acknowledging the financial pressures the Council is facing and the fact that we really do require a multi-agency and partnership approach. The second part of the report focuses on us moving from crisis intervention to a prevention agenda. In other words, how we work better within the budgets we have in a multi-agency setting to stop people falling into poverty. And we're therefore seeking members' support in establishing an anti-poverty and inequalities oversight group, which will report through the Community Planning Partnership governance structure to ensure its work is recognised as critical, visible, and the group is responsible and accountable for delivery in that appropriate multi-agency operating and governance model. You'll see, members, from paragraphs 3 to 6, a high-level summary of the background that's been provided in respect of the cost of living campaign, noting the investment from the Council of 3.125 million. To date, 2.4 million has been spent on a range of projects across the 6 identified key themes, as referenced within the budget table at para 40 and Appendix 1 of the report. This then leads into the high-level summary of each of the 6 key themes, providing an overall update in terms of what the projects have delivered throughout the campaign and work which has embedded in services from paragraph 7 through to 39. Throughout the campaign, and as members and I have witnessed, certainly first-hand during recent ward visits, there's a clear and ongoing required need for community bank provision, as well as a need for continued support to targeted financial inclusion projects and support to local businesses, which is where we're proposing to utilise and target the current underspend in those aforementioned areas. The budget table at para 40 provides an overview in terms of budget allocation and current spend to date. And from paragraphs 43 to 57, further local context has been included within the report, which highlights the range of work that's been delivered across services. Paragraphs 58 through to 64, we've provided a summary on the current national picture in terms of the most up-to-date stats from the Joseph Rowntree UK poverty reports. And we've also been engaged with other local authorities in terms of their direction of travel in terms of the poverty that's being experienced across our communities. This takes us on to the summary of the proposed Anti-Poverty and Inequalities Oversight Group. We've proposed the Cost of Living Oversight Groups, refreshed and reformed in terms of membership and strategic direction, with a clear focus on tackling poverty and inequalities and that prevention agenda, as I've mentioned earlier. The purpose of the Oversight Group is to develop and deliver the East Ayrshire Anti-Poverty and Inequality Strategy, which will focus on early intervention and prevention. And we've included initial draft objectives and the governance arrangements via the Community Planning Partnership Board, which are detailed within paragraph 65 to 87 and Appendix 2. Members, I'm also joined today by a couple of colleagues who've been responsible for delivering on the cost of living activities through Teams and through yourself, Leader. Very happy to take questions and seek comments from members. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. It's quite a wide-ranging paper, but it's something really at the core and heart of everything we're trying to do in tackling poverty and inequalities right through our communities. Can I maybe just ask a kind of broad question in terms of, obviously, members are really, this is something that touches everything we do every day. Where do we, we've got an independent chair, but we've also, got looking to, fill the body with members. Obviously, elected members would obviously have an interest in this. Where do you see that within the structures that you're building, Richard?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I think in terms of the direction of travel and the proposals, they very much reflect the fact that we see the poverty and inequalities challenge that we're facing as a multi-agency challenge for us to face. We need to brigade resource and better use resource across a whole range of partner organisations in targeting this. I think, being honest, in terms of the discussions we're having in that regard and experience that we've had in that setting, what we're trying to do is make sure that other partners have the opportunity and indeed are encouraged to step up and play their part, and this isn't seen as a council problem. And as a consequence, having an independent chair emphasises that there's no one organisation is the lead. We've all got to step up and play our part in contributing to the solution. We would hope that we would get somebody who has interest, knowledge and expertise and skill set in the subject matter. But obviously, through the community planning partnership with the council as the lead partner agency in community planning, there's an opportunity there in terms of members' involvement. But equally, I'd be very happy to ensure there's absolute scrutiny in terms of council's contribution via reports to this cabinet as well, in addition to the community planning setting.
I think we'd absolutely want to see that. I mean, that's been a feature of many cabinet discussions and council discussions right across the board, and maybe including people that aren't directly involved with the community planning partnership. So we really need to keep everybody focused on board. And you're absolutely right to highlight it's not just the council's problem, but we need to bring others to the table that can have the resources and the expertise to actually make sure that that the resources are going to absolutely eliminate poverty and inequalities where we can. Members, Elaine and Barry.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a really useful report, the way it brings together and concludes some of the cost of living activities we're doing. It's very timely, perhaps, to maybe change tact a bit and have a more targeted approach. I was going to ask about the independent chair, but I think Richard, I answered it slightly to your own question, Leader. And I realise that's still to be defined, but I was more interested on what benefits you saw an independent chair bringing, or what sort of knowledge or expertise that they could bring in such a complex area that touch on a lot of the services and a lot of the areas in our communities. So I think that having a fresh approach, a fresh eyes on it, and maybe making us think a bit differently about certain things could be really useful and really effective. But yeah, if there's any further comments on how you see that evolving, that would be useful to hear.
Excellent. Barry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points and a couple of questions. I think first of all, I would say I really welcome the schools and early years financial inclusion work, because I think that's key, where we know parents are, and maybe people who are struggling, who are not wanting to come forward through usual routes, at least they can get that approach in school or in the ECCs. I think that's really useful. couple of points just wanted to highlight at page 13, paragraph in the table. So point 16, local businesses respond to cost of living crisis. Seems to be quite a significant underspend there. I'm just sort of keen to think what locally, what any particular reasons we think have led to that. The other point on page 14 and crossing into page 15, which is the table there, and given some local context in terms of claimant count as a proportion of the 16 to 64 age population. Obviously some worrying statistics there, given in particular areas, my own ward, for example, we're more than double the Scottish rate, and in Kilmarnock South, you know, approaching 3 times that. Some real worries, and not surprising, I think, to members that would see that, but I just wondered how it's comparing, to years going by, and really just some sort of, you know, some further information around that would be useful. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Barrett. Richard.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Douglas. Certainly in terms of the support to businesses and the underspend, discussions with colleague David McDowell has been very much on the basis that when businesses have, we've engaged with them and supported them, there's been a whole range of different opportunities for us to utilise different funding streams in order to help and support throughout the process. So we've not necessarily always focused on this one-off budget, if you like, in order to support businesses. It's come from a range of different aspects, and colleague Jim Dunn's on the call. I'll maybe pass over through you, Leader, in a second to Jim to maybe provide a wee bit more information in that regard. And certainly in terms of statistics, obviously very keen to make sure that we use what we have available to us in terms of shaping and focusing the targeted interventions moving forward, and therefore that's a sort of critical part of what we'll do, and we'll certainly take that on board and make sure that's the case. But through you, Leader, if I could perhaps ask Jim to come in on that regard. The first one, that'd be great.
Thanks. And I don't some of Elaine's points, I think maybe you're quite happy, Elaine, just in terms of, I think I look for just a wee bit more information just in terms of how we're rolling forward.
It's not available at this time, but I'm happy to take it offline. It was more about the sort of we call it like the job spec or personal spec for the person that would fill that role, and what benefits we see that independent chair bringing it, because it's maybe a slightly different approach than we've done in the past.
Excellent.
Through you, Leader, happy to pick up that conversation with you, Councillor Cowan, and certainly we've been engaged with other local authorities who've gone down a similar route. So I have a sort of draft JD person spec, if you like, that I can share with you, and we can have those conversations.
Thanks. And there's Jim. He's up. He's joining us on the screen. Jim, yeah.
Thank you. It was really just to maybe.
We're not hearing you, Jim.
We're not hearing. Okay, is that any better?
That's a wee bit better, yeah.
Better. Okay, apologies. I'll try not to shout, but I will raise my voice. Okay. It's just to expand, I think, maybe on the response to explaining perhaps the position with the spend towards businesses. One of the causes of that, I think, is that a kind of starting piece of support for businesses perhaps is to utilise what we're calling the business energy audit voucher programme, which supports the businesses to undertake the energy audit. That initially took a while to kind of get understood by businesses, and also to find the consultants who could actually undertake these audits. The audits inevitably as well take a bit of time to work through with businesses, and these audits then, when concluded, do a number of things, including setting out some recommendations for things that business could do to improve their energy efficiency and move them down this kind of net zero direction. And it's only at that point are they then able to look at coming to make applications and have discussions with us where we can spend in other ways on some of the kind of business recovery grants, the energy net zero improvement grants. So things take a while to filter through, and I think that, you know, will continue to be the case. But I think we've got some momentum on that now, and we'd anticipate you know, like that process speeding up.
Thanks, Jim. Maybe bring Ian in as well, but just for me, well, in terms of not new, can you come in about some of the data, Ian, but I think Barry's made the point about some of the ward data, but I think that masks some of the real concerns we have with some of the pockets of poverty we have in the SIMD areas. Like my own ward, I've got the most affluent and the poorest parts of Kilmarnock, and I think that probably could go for quite a considerable number of the wards. So I think we need to have that granularity to just see and make sure that we're having an impact in some of these areas that we know.
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Douglas and yourself make good points about the data. A couple of things just to mention to members. One is we're doing a bit of work, so that trend information that Councillor Douglas mentioned, that's available to us, and we can include that in updates to our ward profiles that we're currently working on. And we'll be sharing that with elected members. We've got one of the councillor conversations before the summer is dedicated to a data session where we'll be able to explore some of that. And the third point, just to make, Chair, as well, is that you're right, that's one measure of poverty, but actually there are many others, and some of them are captured in the work we're doing to review the local outcomes improvement plan as part of the performance framework that supports the community plan and the priorities that we've got in there. So there is a bit of work around all of that activity at the moment, and happy to share that with members, as I said, when the ward profiles are produced and in advance of that separate session in June. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Elaine?
Thanks, Chair. I've recently had some conversations with Ian about my own ward, the changing demographics in it, and I think the table in this paper is useful as a first high-level pass, but we need to get down, take a deeper dive into what the numbers are telling us, because especially like wards like my own, where there's been private house building, we're changing the nature and the demographics in the wards as well. So I think having a ward-by-ward deeper dive and a wider conversation across the local authority would be A, really interesting, and B, really useful for some of the direction of some of the strategic projects that we're going to be going. Although we're both shared with frustrations, Ian, about the lack of meaningful data that sometimes is out there, or how long it takes to collect the data. So it's maybe an opportunity for us to look for some local measures that are almost like real-time data to let us know the difference that we're making.
Absolutely, and for years in terms of Northwest Kilmarnock and Shortleys have always been really high up there, and we really need to make sure that we're having some kind of impact in these areas, and some of the areas that are emerging as it's like Central Kilmarnock that are emerging as areas of concern in terms of that poverty on a geographical basis, I suppose. Neil, and then Claire.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the work of the financial inclusion team again. That's so important, and certainly you see the amount of money coming through the financial inclusion team through the schools, through the early childhood centres. It's amazing how much people can actually benefit just from having that wee bit of support. In regard to the cost of living campaign, obviously we had a few things, posters, leaflets, etc., to highlight the supports that we were providing at that time through the campaign. I just wanted to ask, are the leaflets or the posters still relevant? The contact information, because certainly when we're out in our wards talking to constituents who may benefit from things like the money supports, it's a very good tool to be able to pass on. I just wanted to make sure that using those tools, we're still giving them the relevant information.
Thanks, Neil. I mean, that's a real good point about the financial inclusion team. I know I'm asked about members that have contacted yourselves before from other authorities, just to see, they're quite interested in some of the innovative work that we're doing. So any more information I have would be really helpful. But Richard.
Thanks, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Ingham. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think some of the successes that we've had within that school setting in terms of the financial inclusion team have been superb and need to be made sustainable where we've got that evidence success. So dovetailing in very with Ian and the service review around financial inclusion has been critical in our thinking around extending in the short term, but then building in that sustainability through the service review programme. So we'll take that forward in that basis, premised on that evidence success. And in terms of the campaign and the publicity, we'll make sure that the information is refreshed and updated to reflect any changes that we need, and then obviously share with members so that we can support you in engaging with communities in that regard. So thanks for raising that. I'll make sure it's picked up.
Thanks, Richard. Claire.
Thank you.
Sorry, Neil, was you wanting back on that?
Yeah, it was just in regard to the actual physical leaflets that we still have available to us. Should we be using them going forward, or are the points of contact different? Essentially, it's I've had a really good success talking to one individual who was struggling financially, had a full-time caring responsibility for our autistic son. Our autistic son wasn't getting the supports that they should have been getting, but through the actual leaflet and the point of contact on there, they were able to get over £2,000 backdated monies. So that's huge. So I just wanted to make sure that the physical leaflets, if I was passing them out to folk, are they still usable, or do we need to maybe recall that?
I'll look at it as a matter of urgency, but I'm confident that the processes we have in place right now can continue to be followed, and we'll make sure within the services that we're responsible for that it's signposted to the right places and they still get that support. So yes, keep using them, and I'll come back to you with any change.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Leader. Just want to say thank you for the paper, but I have a couple of observations and a question, and it's concerning the food larders. And I think we have to recognise how much these have grown since COVID, and how many more users we have, but how difficult it is now to get food. And I was going to talk about food insecurity, but it's actually hunger. So I'm just going to say hunger. One of the things I noticed, I think it was in paragraph 8 to 11, is that not all have memberships of the food larders. Now, I'm a member of the food larder in Short Leys, and I think it's possibly important that we don't want to make one model fits all idea, but I would like to see that expand out to the other food larders to encourage membership. It takes away some of the stigma as well, and it gives them a bit of dignity towards purchasing their food. Also, publicising them more. It's amazing to me how many people in my ward still don't understand the food larders or know about the food larders or think that they're for them. And I think that's maybe that's a stigma thing that we need to look at and tackle. I think the food larder work's been incredible, and it's not just food they do. Obviously, you know, we pick up information and help people, like Neil was talking about with the financial inclusion teams as well. So I do have a question, and the question is in paragraph 11, and it's about the food larder forum. Now, how can we as councillors feed into that? Because we know our wards and we know our people. And I would like to see a councillor contribution into that forum. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Leader. Critical point, Councillor Maitland. Thanks for the question. I think it's fair to say that throughout the exercise that we've done, it became very evident there's a range of different operating models out there, and as you say, that's okay, because the critical thing is trying to address where we've got these areas of hunger, if you like, and moving forward. I think as we develop the model, it's going to be really important that we're better coordinated in terms of how we support the various food larders, food banks that we've got out there to make them more sustainable in a certain way. I know Mark, who's in the room, has been working hard in terms of some of the services he provides in that regard, and we need to work with partners such as CVO, etc., who are also supporting other parts of the region as well. specific to the Food Ladder Forum, or I can pass on to Mark to answer that specific question, I think, through you, Leader, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Richard, and
Well,
through you, Chair, our leader. The forums are actually planned in by communities. If it's something that's been missed by asking one of our councillors or members to go along, then I can take that up with the teams and say and get you invited to them. Unfortunately, the forums are poorly attended by all members, and we try different times and different dates to try and get people, as many as possible, to come to those larders, because it is important, and we have discussions around how we take the larders forward. But we do need all members from the community groups to come to those to make that discussion favourable and what we move forward with. But I'll take that up with Craig Fulton and his team. Craig Fulton. Yeah, Craig Fulton, sorry. I was getting mixed up with the other Craig just down at the end of the table there for a minute. So Craig Fulton, and I'll bring it up with Arlene and the community workers as well. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Mark. Claire.
Just want to say I do appreciate how hard it is to get all members to engage with it, with the forum, and I appreciate that Mark's moving times around, etc. But maybe if they put it in on the same day that the food larders are working, etc., or I don't know, tie it up with another meeting. Thank you.
No, if you tie it up, a pervert definitely takes it. No, but seriously, I think that's something we need to make sure there is attendance. That would really help matters. Just getting people along, getting involved. Okay. That everybody had their contribution. So go to recommendations. Page 3. Can we agree recommendations?
Agreed.
Thanks. Now go over to item 3, which is an unacceptable actions policy review. Ian Tuff.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. So this report, firstly, it presents the outcomes from the review of the Council's unacceptable actions policy and seeks approval of a revised policy and a revised title of it to positive engagement policy. So members will be familiar with the unacceptable actions policy. We've had that in place since 2012-13, but in the passage of time since then, there have been a few material changes to how we've approached some of this work, no more so than the review of the complaints handling procedure and also the work we've done to strengthen and build on our customer service approach. So the unacceptable action policy is really about how we manage and support employees and deal with unacceptable actions and behaviours from some of the customers that present for services to the council. So the policy, the new policy, the positive engagement policy is attached as an appendix. This has been the product of a bit of work that has been led by corporate support and my colleague June McIntyre, who's joined us today as well, along with colleagues in health and safety, people and culture, and a range of employee groups through council services as well. So the strengthened policy that's attached really is a step forward for us. It does build on a position of strength. And of course, it is not only just for employees, but also for elected members as well. So this policy applies to elected members in your engagement and dealings with constituents too. A helpful point made by the education reps in the pre-meeting earlier was about extending that to reflect those members of Cabinet as well, the education non-elected members of Cabinet as well, to make explicit reference to them, and we'll pick that up, June, as an action from today. But beyond that, the main issues now are implementation of this new policy. As I said, it does very much align with the work we are doing through the new customer charter and corporate telephony approaches, violence and aggression, and workplace standards as well for employees. I wasn't proposing to go through the actual policy in any great detail, Chair, but happy either myself or June to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Any questions or comments? Lynn? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. It's obviously an important piece of work. I'm just interested in the mechanics of recording them. Do all departments, all services use a standard form to record it? Do they all go into the same database? Because I'm just wondering, how do we do some kind of like review over a 6-month period or a year to see if there's any themes, or have we had successful interactions? Is there any learnings of that? And then if that review does happen, is that a function of the Governance and Scrutiny Committee to have a look at? For, I'm just thinking ahead for what the learnings would be and what could have future tweaks in the policy, or any alterations if we find there's an area that's not working as well as it could when it's interacting with the public.
Thanks, Councillor Chair. If you're okay, I'll come back on that. So we have already, so that we capture some of that through the SHE system. So some of those engagements we have with people who, get towards that serious level, and that's captured through the SHE system. We have arrangements through, again, the standardised approach to the complaints handling procedure and the management of all of that activity as well, to capture some of that management information. June, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and the review and the understanding how the policies actually working is really important, and it is one of the reasons we've said we want to keep the working group going. And I suppose we were thinking at an officer level rather than an elected member level, but to review the policy, how it's working, how the information sharing across different services working, because there are challenges around that, and it's something that we're looking at our wider approach to data sharing and getting that overview of what's actually happening. So it is something that will be taken forward through the working group, but happy to consider how we report back to you on the progress of the policy as we review it.
Neil?
Thanks again. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this paper in front of us. Obviously, we need to make sure that we're maintaining a quality service and addressing the real need in our communities, while making sure that staff are aware of their rights to challenge unacceptable behaviour. So the positive engagement policy will help to educate our staff and support them when dealing with challenging situations, and also helps to highlight our zero tolerance towards threats, intimidation, violence and abusive behaviour towards council employees who are essentially just trying to do their job. So thanks again.
Thanks, Neil. Okay, anybody else? Okay, can we go to recommendations? Can we agree recommendations? Okay, thanks, Ian. But you're on again. There's your shared British BSL sign language plan.
Thanks, Chair. So yes, members will be familiar again. This isn't the first time British Sign Language Plan has been in front of Cabinet. This is the second iteration of that plan. This is the plan that helps the Council meet its statutory duty that was introduced in September 2015. So the plan itself is very much based on the national strategy that the Scottish Government issued, and then the Council's plan is then developed to align to those national priorities. For us, on this particular subject, we undertake this work in partnership with the 3 Ayrshire councils, so on a pan-Ayrshire basis, and with the NHS. So our plan is shared across all of those partners, and each of them have their own decision-making structures to then have that approval process in place, and that's currently in progress just now. The plan also, importantly, very much reflects the priorities for that part of our community. So it's informed by the work that we do with the Ayrshire the Ayrshire Deaf Education Service and the deaf clubs that are prominent throughout the area too, as well as the cohort of students that are based at Ayrshire College too. So, as I said, the actual strategy, the plan itself is attached and reflects the national position. Because it is a pan-Ayrshire plan, we also have an East Ayrshire implementation part of that. That's a bit of work in progress again that we're doing just now, that takes those priorities, those high level ones that are in the attached plan on that pan-Ayrshire basis, but translates them into what we need to do at an East Ayrshire level. And that's, as I said, a work in progress just now that's not available yet, but we did have to bring this to Cabinet today to get the overarching high level strategic plan approved so that we can proceed on that basis. So again, happy to answer any questions, Chair. Recommendations are set out at the first paragraphs. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Ian. No, I really appreciate this coming in. And I know this is often, sometimes this community tends to be, in terms of equality, is overlooked occasionally. And it's important that we're certainly not doing that, and we've got this plan in front of us. Members, any comments or questions, Neil?
Yeah, it's just a quick question. Obviously, I understand that there is difficulties when it comes to engaging, and with the fact that there's also been quite a tight timescale in regard to developing the plan locally, consulting. So, is there any way that we can maybe feed that back in regard to timescales? See if we can maybe be given a little bit more time to do the necessary work that we need to do, given the fact that it is challenging to get that communication when it's quite a diverse group. Not everybody agrees on the way forward, and it's kind of bringing people together to get those wide variety of opinions. Yeah, how could we go back to the Scottish Government to just express that a wee bit more time would certainly be helpful in that regard?
Good point, Neil. Ian?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. That's a good point. We have made representation back to them because the timescales were really quite challenging, actually, to even get to the point of having that high-level pan-Ayrshire approach. So we have made that representation back to them. We've also stressed the point that to do this justice, we need the time to do that engagement. So because of the diversity of those groups, that can be challenging in itself, never mind having those timescales imposed on us as well. So that work is continuing, that engagement work is continuing. We want to make sure that that voice is heard within that the final version of our implementation plan for this. What we had to do, though, was bring forward that high-level plan on a pan-Ayrshire basis. As I said, North and South Ayrshire and NHS are going through their own decision-making processes to get them signed off. So with that in place, we can then take a wee bit more time, which is helpful, to do more of that engagement and to get the implementation plan at a local level robust and reflecting the voice of those communities. So yeah, it's a point well made and one that we've made back to Scottish Government as well. Thanks.
Okay, happy with that. Okay, thanks, folks. Can we, maybe if there's no other comments, can we maybe go to page 16 and agree the recommendations? Okay, I would normally ask the education spokesperson to leave at this point. There's only one item left. It's about national good food, and school meals are, I would say, it's interest to education folk as much as anybody else. So if you want to remain for this last item and maybe hear Andrew's report, may be worthwhile. Okay, Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. This report sets out the Council's proposed response to the current Scottish Government Good Food Nation Plan consultation. Scottish Government has published a draft Good Food Nation Plan for consultation and have over the past few months engaged with a range of stakeholders in face-to-face consultation, which has been attended by officers and have obviously put out the written consultation response. The draft Good Food Nation Plan can be found on the Government's website, and the consultation document is focused on getting a wide range of public, stakeholder and business feedback. As the Council has been at the forefront of a number of the key themes in the plan and required to produce their own Good Food Nation Plan, it is recommended the attached response is submitted. The plan is based on 6 outcomes set out in paragraph 7 of the report and focused on ensuring the value of food is seen across a range of social, educational, economic and environmental impacts. An officer group has pulled together the draft response, including representatives from corporate support, economic growth, catering, procurement, environmental health, the Leisure Trust, planning, health and social care partnership with links and also links to NHS and community groups. As members will see from the content of the report, it's a very wide-ranging agenda. The response sets out broad support for the principles of the Good Food Nation plan. However, we do note there is a further need for a joined-up approach and a considerable investment to really deliver the ambition. We recognise the direction of travel, but also notes the need for clearer measures and targets, as well as a need to ensure that over the next 5 years, which is the first plan that the government will develop, that there are realistic and realistic actions that are also deliverable in that timeline. It also notes significant positive examples across East Ayrshire, from community larders, school food, climate change, local food procurement, joint working with health, economic growth and business support. So I think just in summary, there are clear benefits of aligning food-related impacts, particularly recognising the current challenges around poverty, food insecurity and climate change, which we've obviously discussed. Further work will be required now to bring forward the council plan for consultation and engagement locally, which is required within 1 year of the national plan being adopted. I don't plan to go into any further detail, but obviously hope that provides an overview of the report. I would therefore refer members to recommendations on page 75, but obviously happy to take comments and questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? No. Okay, we'll just go straight to recommendations. Can we agree with recommendations? Okay, that concludes business for today, and just thank you all for your attendance.